at is just the rhetoric. And, you know, people are at each other's throats. Do you see that as a contributing factor in Butler, which you've already looked at?
Absolutely. The rhetoric is every day, all day. And as it's directed against President Trump, it's saying that he's a threat to democracy, that he's going to destroy America. It's absolutely absurd, and it is irresponsible. And Democrats and people who are speaking in these terms about President Trump need to take responsibility and really think about the consequence of using that kind of language. Right. Because here we are again. And so in the days immediately after Butler, we heard people accept that that needed to stop, but it didn't last. And right. that today is a day that needs to be taken seriously.
It lasted about a day and a half.
Now let's see. The former president incites a riot on the Capitol because he lost. Agreed with his supporters' vow to hang his VP Mike Pence. Promises to be a dictator on day one. Mocks the attempted murder of Paul Pelosi. Promises to deport Haitian immigrants that are in the country legally after still spreading lies about them, like claiming that they're raping and sodomizing your daughters. And Republicans are acting like Democrats, calling his actions a threat to democracy as inciting violence. Did they forget?
Kamala Harris destroyed San Francisco. She destroyed California, and now she's destroying America. She will destroy this country. She will destroy this country. She shouldn't have been vice president. If you know what they call a threat to democracy. She's a threat to democracy. The way they call me, a threat. I take a bullet in the head, and I'm a threat. No. She's a threat to democracy. Think of it. And I say, that's a threat to democracy. They're the real threat to democracy. They use that. That's just a standard line.
So since the go-to excuse is to both sides it every time MAGA threatens to or commits political violence, doesn't Trump's rhetoric about Harris need to be toned down? How about his buddy Elon's since-deleted post about why no one is trying to kill Harris? Does that count as violent rhetoric? Of course not, because all this is meant to demonize Democrats and deify Trump.
We cannot normalize what has happened to an American president and our current Republican nominee. Just look at what Donald Trump has been through. From the Russia hoax to sham impeachments and indictments to 2 attempts on his life in just 2 months. It's incredible that President Trump has come out on the other end of all of this with motivation to keep fighting. To me, Donald Trump is the patriot of the 21st century. He will never surrender, nor should he. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our leader, Steve Scalise.
Isn't it embarrassing to read a pre-approved dictatorial screed about how the most divisive politician in modern history is the patriot of your life? These guys could be legislating, but they're fulfilling their vow to work only to promote Trump.
I tell you, we better protect him and his family because something is going to happen before the election. You can see it coming because they know they're losing, and they're so afraid of this happening. They don't want to make any decisions to protect him. They want it to happen naturally.
So you think there will be another attempt on Mr. Trump's life?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt. They can't afford him to win. They've got so many irons in the fire in terms of doing things illegally against the American taxpayer, Larry. They are going to do everything they possibly can to keep him out of office. Look at all the things that they've already done, and none of them have worked. I mean, the guy is Teflon Don, but I'm going to tell you, I'm worried about his family. I'm worried about him. I'm worried about the America that we have grown up in. He is the only one that has the opportunity and the guts to get something done to save this country from a disaster. And they are counting on this to happen. I'm telling you, they're counting on it. They don't want to protect the man. They don't want to protect his family. They do not want to protect this country. Yes, I do believe they're going to try again. They're going to try again and again until something happens. And that's the reason that we have to have people around him protecting him more and more every day.
Literally. While the entire party demands the Democrats stop campaigning off of the absolute hatred that Trump emits every day, Tommy Tuberville puts his face in front of a camera to baselessly promise that they'll kill Trump. It's a multi-layered plan. Stoke chaos and violence, deify him, and tell your established foot soldiers that their messiah will be murdered by their enemies. What do you think they're going to do?
He felt like God was with him during that. Was he mentioning anything like that? I mean, this is the second time someone has tried to take his life. That has to be pretty jarring.
God has spared his life twice now. And I told him that it reminded me of the bulletproof George Washington, our first president, who evaded being shot when he was an Army colonel, the famous incident in the French-Indian War. These things aren't accidents. It's not luck. I believe it's providence, and we talked about that.
I mean, but for that agent and the grace of God, again, 2 miracles now in 2 months.
Wow. Somebody's looking out for the former president.
That's exactly what the speaker told him. This is a divine intervention here for a higher cause.
You've been a man of faith. You go to church. You believe in God. And obviously, God, in addition to that chart, saved your life. He has a purpose for you.
Now, if you don't think they want more violence, then you're fooling yourself. The plan to launch misogynistic and racist attacks flopped. Their plan to dig in their heels on refusing abortion rights backfired. The standard vilification of immigrants with throwback references to the ugliest tropes isn't landing. So they're going all in on the infallibility argument to not only free him of his responsibility to stop stoking violence, but to further erode their supporters' trust in our agencies. But only when it comes to him.
I did announce yesterday we're going to be doing a state-level investigation. I understand that the feds are involved, but we do believe that there were multiple violations of state law. We also believe that there's a need to make sure that the truth about all this comes out in a way, that's credible. I mean, I look at the federal government with all due respect to them. Those same agencies that are prosecuting Trump in that jurisdiction are now going to be investigating this. I just think that may not be the best thing for this country. Nevertheless, they have their prerogative, but we have our prerogative. And so we'll be making an announcement further along those lines in the ensuing days.
Sure. A biased Trump surrogate that literally started his national political career off of characterizing himself as Trump's minion is undermining the federal investigation into the last would-be shooter. Only to drive the point home that only Trump and his people can come up with valid answers, in case some more of their alternative facts need to be spread. But there's still one very big part of this dismantling of reality that they've employed from the start. Demonize the media for telling the truth.
Today's apparent assassination attempt comes amid increasingly fierce rhetoric on the campaign trail itself. Mr. Trump, his running mate J.D. Vance continue to make baseless claims about Haitian immigrants in Ohio. This weekend, there were new bomb threats in that town.
I'm going to read a quote from Lester Holt, who was reporting on this assassination attempt again, the second in 64 days. Here's what he said tonight on the NBC Nightly News, and you're going to get a real kick out of this. So in other words, it's Trump's fault that somebody tried to shoot him today because of something that was said about Springfield, Ohio. I'll let you go from here because I can't believe what I just saw right now on the NBC Nightly News.
Sickening. Absolutely sickening. No, actually, I thought it was all the Democrats and their anti-Semitism. I thought it was all the Democrats and their anti-Israel. I thought it was all the Democrats hunting down Jews on the universities and college campuses. I thought they were the problem. I thought it was all the illegal immigrants raping, murdering, selling into slavery, women and children. Maybe Lester Holt has a difficulty digesting facts around him. This guy is not a Haitian. If you tried to do a Google search of the number of times Donald Trump is called Hitler, I think your computer would melt down. I think your computer would melt down.
Mark Levin should check in with Trump's running mate on that Hitler talk.
You've said, I'm a never Trump guy. Never liked him. Terrible candidate. Idiot if you voted for him. Might be America's Hitler. Might be America's Hitler. Might be a cynical a-hole. Cultural heroine. Noxious and reprehensible.
Weird how the guy that called Trump America's Hitler hasn't contributed to the violence directed at him. Maybe because he decided to ignore the two principles that he once had for a shot at some power. Because now, Proud Boys marching in the streets of the city that he lied about is no big deal to him.
Now, you mentioned a Proud Boys march. I imagine that's the clip that I saw yesterday of about a dozen people marching down the street. Of course, I don't align myself with the views of the Proud Boys, Margaret, but we have to remember that this is a real problem. The media is using things like a dozen marchers to ignore and distract from the fact that thanks to Kamala Harris's open borders, there are children who aren't getting a good education. Thanks to her open southern border, there is a rise in HIV cases in Springfield, Ohio.
There's all this anger and promotion of violence, while the current president simply gave them the least newsworthy but direct response that they couldn't use to further their hate campaign. So they went another direction.
I think thank God the president's okay. I think we got a full report so far. We're down there tonight. But one thing I want to make clear, the service needs more help. And I think the Congress should respond to their needs if they in fact need more services. So that's what we're going to be talking about. I think we need some more personnel. I think they may decide whether they need more personnel or not.